behind, you're being built. You're not behind, you're being built. If you have ever thought at any point as an entrepreneur, as somebody with a dream or a vision to build, create, grow, develop, and you've looked around to your left, to your right, up, down, on social media, and you've said, man, this person is further along than me, or man, I think I should not start because these people have more things, and that means they are better prepared, they are ready to do X, Y, and Z. If that's you, if that has ever been you, this episode is for you. And we're talking all about not only your mindset, which is what we covered last week, but also your perspective. We're talking about your perspective and the perspective of what it means to actually be built and developed versus having everything all together and comparing yourself to everyone else around you. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because, no joke, I had a conversation today with a friend and colleague of mine where we were discussing perspective. So I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to continue this mindset conversation on the Dream Build Repeat podcast. I'm your host, Casey Sharperson, and I'm a peak performance expert and coach. And what I do is work with organizations who are looking to grow and develop their people from disengaged, dissatisfied, distracted into focused colleagues and team members with vision and passion and excitement. So that's what I love to do. That's why this podcast exists. That's why all the content that I create exists. And a lot of it has to do with confidence in your skills, your perspective, and your unique value that you have. So I've spoken at length about my book called Dream Build Repeat: Harness Fear to Confidently Pursue Your Biggest Dreams. And this episode is no different because the topic itself, I cover some of it in chapter 5, which is all about perspective. That's actually step 2 of the Dream Build Repeat process. And that step is to renew. And it talks all about renewing your mind and renewing your perspective. But let's be real. Let's be real. We can talk about renewing our mind in the Bible because I'm a woman of faith. And so I think about the Bible and the importance of renewing our mind, which basically means every day having the opportunity to choose a different story, to see a different story, to be open to what God could be doing in our lives. So that's a little bit of the process of renewing their mind or renewing our minds. And there's this initial lie that when you're looking around, side to side, around, and you're saying, man, this person is so much further ahead than me, right? And there's this lie of being behind. And it's also an incomplete picture. As I mentioned, I was talking to a friend of mine today, and she said, what is the story that you're telling yourself in this season? And is there any evidence to back it up? And as I was talking to her, I said, yeah, there's this, there's that. But I started to realize, a lot of this is me projecting the possibilities. And as somebody who is a planner, I've been a project manager and an implementation manager in many lives, right? Many experiences, many jobs. And so with that, I think about worst case scenario. I think about all the possibilities, all the issues, all the problems, right? All the things that could go wrong. And what I started to realize, and I am realizing, is that I can take that same perspective of worst case scenario and I can apply that to my life. I can apply that to my business, and my worst case scenarios will then allow me space to go down these rabbit trails of possibilities. And as I go down these rabbit trails of possibilities, that's when I have the opportunity to go deeper into these rabbit trails. And instead of producing the thing that I have planned to do, the thing that needs to be done, I'm now spending all my effort trying to prevent the worst case scenario happening, right? Prevention, and spending my time in prevention rather than production. And I believe that that's not just me that is spending their time on prevention rather than production. And this is a lie from, I believe, the enemy. The lie is that I am behind. The lie is that everybody else around me has it together, has everything together. The lie is that all of these people that have more followers, more income, more access are more valuable than me. These are all lies that are, what I know for sure, not true. While there might be elements of truth, it might be true that somebody does have more followers than you. It might be true that somebody does have more money than you, but that does not mean by default that they are more qualified than you. It doesn't mean by default that they are more called than you. It doesn't mean by default that they have more than you. It really just means that they got out of their own way and they produced. They showed up, they put in the work, or they showed up, they were part of the family that had access. Whatever their story is, regardless, there was action. There was forward movement. And when we're stuck in this idea of being behind, that can keep us behind. It can keep us in this state of inertia, right? Staying in the same place, which is great in certain areas, right? It's great for our solar system to stay in the same place. It's great for all of these scientific things to have no change, right? This is great. But as beings with a soul, with purpose, with perspective, we need to be moving forward. So it is a lie that you're behind. And in fact, that lie can breed other lies. It could breed other lies to say, oh, I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I can never get there. It's too late for me. You know, I was thinking about when I wrote Dream Build Repeat, which was it was a whole effort to produce the book, to get it out there, because there were a lot of perspectives that I needed to refine or redefine, and a lot of mind renewal that I needed to do. But I kept thinking, man, I don't know if the book was out in the right time. I feel like I should have gotten it done earlier. But I remember when I published the book and I started going on tour and speaking to people, there was a lady who was 75 at the time. And she said, Casey, I have been working on this degree for ages. I mean, she told me years she had been working on this degree. She had been stuck. She said, the moment I read your book, I turned the last page and I said, oh, I need to finish this. It's not too late for me. So she went and finished her degree, which is amazing. And she said, I was stuck until I read this and it pushed me forward. So even in the fact that I thought I was behind, it was right on time to push her forward, which is such a beautiful perspective to have, to know that even if the reality is that you coulda, shoulda, woulda been, there's still time for you. So don't get caught up in the lies and caught up in the distractions of the what ifs and the what could have beens. So instead of focusing on what hasn't happened, let's instead shift our mindset to what God is building in the in-between. What I love about our partnership with the May Lady Boss series and Cindy Dennis Ministries is that it is an equipping, a spiritual equipping and a practical equipping on this platform. And the practical equipping, even in this moment, is evident and it is necessary. So yes, we can pray about this. Okay, Lord, show me where I'm stuck. Show me where my beliefs are that don't align with you. Show me areas of character building that you are working in me in this in-between time. So my first point in this in-between, in this building season, dream, build, repeat. In this building season, you can see how God is developing character in you, how he's developing your patience, how he's developing your skills, your relationships, how he's ridding your mind of the toxic belief systems that would keep you stuck and keep you bound. He's also expanding, and he could be expanding your capacity. Some of us want the big, we want the more, we want the opportunities, we want the growth, we want the expansion. But if we want more money, but don't have capacity, we don't have a bank account, we don't have a service offering, we don't have an opportunity for people to pay us, how could we make sales? Right? So in this in-between space, maybe he's developing capacity in you. Maybe he's expanding and giving you insight to say, maybe I need to open this thing up. Maybe I need to create space to contain what it is that I see for myself, what it is that I want for myself, what it is that God has given me a vision for. So you could be expanding your capacity. In this in-between, God could also be, number 3, developing clarity. Clarity, it's one of my favorite words. I love clarity in my marketing and my communication side of my business. I'm always talking about what can we clearly communicate? What is it that our audience, our buyer, our community, what is it that they need to know, right? So clarity matters. But even in that, there is a developing in a process that maybe you're trying to determine, of these 5 ideas that I have, what do I do next, right? And in that in-between time, when you realize that you're not behind, but you're being built, God can provide that clarity. That clarity can come in the form of a video or a podcast episode like this one. That clarity could come through a book like this one. It could come through a moment of prayer with God. It could come from reading scripture and suddenly you look and say, wow, I can ask for wisdom and receive it. Just like Solomon. I can pray for wisdom and perspective just like David. And the answer is yes, because if God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then the same God that lifted up Joseph out of a pit, who probably thought he was behind in his vision, the same God that lifted him up out of a pit, placed him in a prison, and then replaced him in a palace. That's what God can do. That's what God has done. And so maybe this is a season of clarity for you. And in this in-between, he's developing character. And number 4, God could be developing confidence in you. Maybe you have all the clarity you need. You know that this business is important to you. This business has legs, meaning this business is necessary for this time, for this season. You know that, but maybe you just need the confidence to go for it. You know, one of my biggest struggles, and probably this is why I talk about confidence and why it's a cornerstone and has been a cornerstone of my business for all of these years, is because confidence has been something that I have struggled with. And I struggled with it in certain areas, not all. Because I have found that in the areas of my gifting came the most insecurity. And those areas of my gifting came the most insecurity because those were also the ones where I had the most, let's say, trauma around them. For example, and I told this story in my book, and I've told it a couple times on my platform, where now I'm a professional speaker. I keynote speak, I do trainings, I do development work. I speak for a living, right? But the thing that I was most attacked for, if you will, the thing that I got the most feedback about was my voice. From people making fun of how I talked and the way that I spoke, kids making fun of that, to going to work on a pageant or work on the preparation for a pageant, I think is a better way to say that. So working on that, and then having my pageant coach tell me that my voice was hard to hear and she would rather I deepen my voice to make it more appealing to people. Not deepen it super low, but just, your voice is a little shrill. You should take it down, right? And there are so many other examples that I could give of how the very thing that I feel like I'm called to do was the very thing that was nitpicked and poked at, where I begin to lack confidence. And so in this in-between season, When you feel like you might be behind, when you feel like you are behind, maybe God is developing your confidence. Maybe he's sending people to remind you exactly who you are. Maybe he's sending people to tell you in this very moment that your voice matters. Maybe he's telling people to tell you, you are beautiful. Maybe he's leading people to give you feedback on your work and the feedback that you have always desired and wanted from your family, whatever it is. In this in-between, God can develop confidence. And this confidence is something that you're going to have to walk out, that you just have to write a different story. And this is something that I'm doing on a daily basis. It's something that I was even convicted about today. And writing a new story. So even in the places where I felt like I've tried this before and it didn't work, it's time to write another story. If you have felt like you have given something your all and it didn't work out, and you feel like because it didn't work that time or those 2 times that it's not meant to be, let's cast our eyes to any famous inventor and ask them, inquire of them how many times it took them to accomplish the thing that they're known for. And quite frankly, most of them, it's going to be more than 1 time. Most of them, it's going to be more than 2 times. And I am preaching to the choir. I am also preaching to myself. I'm preaching to everybody that needs to hear this. And be reminded that just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean that it's not going to work this time. And this is an area of growth that many believers, I believe, need to work through, because we can think, oh, I prayed 1 time and it didn't work out the way that I thought, so maybe it's a no from God. But I am of the belief that God can use no's to develop us. He can use not yet's to develop us. He could use yeses to develop us. And so who are we to judge and to determine what he can do? We can't. We shouldn't. And God is not a human that he should lie. So if he has given you a promise, and we find countless promises in scripture, if he has given you a promise, then it is up to you, up to me, to accept that promise, to take hold of that promise, and live it out. And we get to live it out with him. So in this in-between time, God could be developing your character. He could be expanding your capacity. He could be providing clarity, and he could also be providing confidence to you in this season of the in-between. And ultimately, we need to shift from comparison, where we're looking around and inquiring of people of, oh, what are you doing? How can I get there? I'm so behind. Is there enough space for me? And we're shifting into building what it is that God has called us to build. Again, this is the dream, build, repeat. So in order to do that, of course, the most obvious way is to stop the scroll. Stop the scroll, stop the mindless scrolling that frustrates you to no end, even if it's a personal thing where it's like, man, I wish I was married. I want to be married and it's not happening for me. And so every time you get on social and you see an engagement, you see a love story, it hurts your heart a little bit. Take that to God, but also pause the scroll. Get off that space and then go and be encouraged, but about what God is doing in your life, about what God can do in your life, what you are praying for him to do in your life. So stop the scroll and then shift this perspective to practice gratitude and to acknowledge what it is that he has already done. And I am guilty of this, where I just continue moving. I'll go on and on and on, and I don't pause to bask in what it is that God has done. I'll say, oh, wow, that's nice, and then move on. When ultimately, I wonder if God is up in heaven saying, Casey, you have prayed about this, and you were tarrying, and you were crying out to me, and doing all the things, and now you get it, and you're like, okay, thanks, God, on to the next thing. Like, I just imagine. that God has those moments and he's just shaking his head like, oh gosh, never satisfied. Which is true. It's this human tendency to just keep going. I just need to go to the next goal. I just need to go to the next thing. But when you pause and you practice gratitude, and then you take that gratitude and you celebrate what it is that God has done. You document the answered prayers. You document the wins that have come in the process of the build. It makes this journey so much more fun. It makes this journey so much more intriguing, interesting, and exciting. So you're not behind, you're being built. And I hope that this has encouraged you to know that you're not alone, to know that there is a process available to get out of that funk of not being enough, of not being in the right place, and shifting and renewing your mindset, renewing your perspective to say, wow, I'm not behind, I'm just being built. And I love a journal entry. So I might encourage you to ask yourself, God, what are you developing in me? So ask, write this down, pray. God, what are you developing in me in this season? And then your journal prompt is, where have I been feeling behind? And what do I already have access to? Where am I feeling behind? And what do I already have access to? This will unlock some areas for you where you have felt behind, where you have felt like you needed more, and provide you some clarity, provide you maybe even some stepping stones to move forward to get out of what can be a stuck place. So I hope that this has encouraged you. I am happy to be connected with you. Of course, I'm Casey Sharperson, easy to find every single place. Would love to hear your comments and would love, if this resonated with you, to share what resonated with you and share it with a friend that might need this message as well. Thanks for connecting, and I believe in you. I know that you have everything that you need to be successful in this season and every season.